Everybody, I could hear them talking around my bed. I'd be in a fog. I could hear them talking about he may not pull
Dolly,
through.
you're right about Kenny Rogers. There was a good-looking man.
Very.
He should have left it alone.
What if the voices that built country music's golden charts were forged on hospital gurneys long before they boomed across prairie radios? Behind every rhinestone jacket and spotlight lies a quieter flash, the cold glint of surgical steel. Tonight we peel back polished legends to expose the sutures, the scars, and the high-stakes wagers that rebuilt bodies, redirected careers, and sometimes transformed the very sound of America. These turning points didn't happen on stage. They unfolded under flickering fluorescent bulbs while monitors beeped, while families waited, while managers calculated risk against record sales. Some singers walked out of operating rooms reborn. Others paid such a toll that the next note carried the weight of mortality, and still they stepped to the mic. So settle in, because the story of country music's greatest voices is also the story of scalpels, heart pumps, and last-chance miracles no spotlight ever showed. Johnny Cash strode into Memphis Baptist Hospital in 1988, clinging to life after coronary arteries choked off blood to the man in black's titanic heart. Surgeons split his sternum, detoured blood through a machine, and rebuilt the blocked pathways. Cash survived, but the aftermath painted every verse he recorded afterward with gravel. The once thunder-driven baritone dropped into a brittle rustle, forcing him to reinvent his phrasing and lean into intimacy over roar. Years later, he admitted the surgery taught him fear, then handed him a new weapon, vulnerability. Across the country, Merle Haggard faced a scalpel of his own 2 decades later. Diagnosed with a tumor wedged inside his right lung, the Bakersfield rebel watched doctors remove a fist-sized lobe in 2008. He awoke breathing through pain and prayer, stunned that the signature growl now fluttered at the edges. Haggard doubled down on songwriting, letting the scar tissue dictate slower keys and raw confessionals that critics hailed as late-career masterpieces. Randy Travis never even reached the table voluntarily. A massive stroke in 2013 crumpled the smooth-voiced baritone and sent him into emergency brain surgery. He emerged unable to speak, his future erased overnight. But technology kept chasing him. A decade later, neural network wizardry mapped old recordings onto new brain signals, letting Travis release a single built from circuitry and willpower. It wasn't the voice he once owned, it was testimony carved from survival. Each operation proved that saving a life can cost a texture. Fans felt the difference even if they couldn't name it. They just turned up the dial and leaned closer, sensing the stakes with every note. Cash, Haggard, Travis. Their surgeries didn't end chapters, they authored second acts where frailty sounded richer than youth ever could. When June Carter Cash agreed to a risky heart valve replacement in May 2003, she did it with a smile that steadied Johnny's shaking hands. The procedure seemed routine, but complications spiraled. She slipped away 5 days later, leaving Johnny staggering through grief so dense it felt like chest congestion. He took the stage only once more, his voice quivering through hurt, like a widow's letter before following her that September. Love saves, love costs. Conway Twitty kept his own emergency quiet. In June 1993, he collapsed on stage from a ruptured abdominal blood vessel. Surgeons raced to cut and clamp the hidden grenade, but the star never woke. Fans only learned details after the body was on its way home. That secrecy spoke volumes about Nashville's code: protect the myth, even as the man bleeds. Waylon Jennings fought diabetes for decades until a spreading infection forced doctors to remove his foot in 2001. The outlaw who once prowled arenas now rolled on stage in a chair, guitar propped across his lap like a shield. He joked the amp took some weight off his touring bill, but friends heard the heartbreak between laughs. The amputation slowed him, yet performances glowed with concentrated fire, each lyric a stand against creeping darkness. Family, crew, and fans felt the aftershocks. Records spiked, tribute specials aired, yet empty tour buses sat silent in parking lots across the South. In country lore, roads are long and dusty, but nothing feels longer than the corridor between an operating theater and the ICU waiting room. Each step there rewrites contracts, reshuffles set lists, and forces managers to consider insurance clauses nobody wants to read. Jennings, Twitty, and the Cash Dynasty proved that sometimes the most dramatic key change doesn't happen in a song. It happens when a surgeon announces, "We did everything we could." Country legends aren't known for sequins alone, they are memorized face first. Dolly Parton understood early that brand identity could ride on a single camera angle, so she treated her visage like another instrument. Over the decades, she opted for lifts, tucks, implants, and injectable tune-ups, joking she paid good money to look this cheap. Beneath the punchline sat harsh realities: back pain from weighty aesthetics, scar tissue hiding under stage makeup, and rumors of fainting spells triggered by tightly cinched corsets. Kenny Rogers, by contrast, went searching for eternal youth and overshot. A late 90s facelift left his eyelids permanently wide, as if surprised by their own reflection. Rogers later admitted regret, calling the result an expensive lesson in letting time do some editing. Fans loved him anyway, but the old warmth in his gaze now flickered behind skin stretched one notch too far. Tanya Tucker fought a different battle. Years of arena smoke and late-night hollering weathered her cords and complexion. She signed up for laser resurfacing and a delicate throat procedure in 2008. The laser scorched more than planned, forcing months of hushed recovery. When Tucker returned, her voice carried a renewable edge, less twang and more steel, an unintended stylistic pivot that revived her chart presence. Winona Judd chose her abdomen. Lingering injuries and relentless touring pushed her toward gastric surgery in 2003. The operation trimmed pounds but introduced blood clots that nearly cost her life. She later framed the ordeal as a spiritual wake-up, crediting physical pain for new lyrical honesty. Cosmetic in intent, life or death in execution, that paradox haunts country glamour. In Nashville, mirrors and microphones share a backstage dressing room. Each nip or tuck can amplify a career, mute it, or reshape it into something no fan saw coming. The stakes are higher than vanity. They define branding photos, merchandise likenesses, even bobblehead molds. Change the face and you might just change the melody fans hear in their heads. Some surgeons aren't asked to beautify, they are begged to piece shattered legends back together. Hank Williams Jr. knows. In 1975, he tumbled 400 feet down Montana's Ajax Peak, smashing skull, jaw, and spirit. Doctors performed 9 separate operations, wiring bone and grafting skin until a mirror finally reflected someone he could recognize. The full beard, the dark shades, the cowboy hat pulled low, those became both camouflage and armor. They also crafted an outlaw brand so potent that fans forgot the clean-shaven prodigy ever existed. Patsy Cline met disaster on a Virginia highway in 1961. Her car slammed head-on into another, driving the steering wheel into her chest and all but ending her voice. Emergency surgeons patched ribs, stitched a deep forehead gash, and advised months of rest. 2 weeks later, she limped onto the Grand Ole Opry stage in a sequined cast, delivering "I Fall to Pieces" with prophetic resonance. The scar across her brow became a silent punctuation mark in every close-up. Barbara Mandrell's 1984 collision with a swerving teen sent her airborne in a Jaguar that crumpled like tin. She spent weeks undergoing orthopedic rebuilds, steel rods, spinal alignment, nerve repair. Mandrell returned to hosting award shows, but relentless pain pushed her into partial retirement. Her withdrawal proved how a single collision can redirect industry hierarchies, opening slots for younger voices while cementing her legend in gold. Fans rarely witness the rehab halls where these icons learn to strum with broken wrists or breathe through swollen lungs. But the music changes subtly. Phrasing slows, keys drop a step, vulnerability radiates through every pause. Surgeons may sign discharge papers, yet the true clearance comes when an artist finally walks back under stage lights, lets silence hang, and proves the human spirit can encore itself. In that first courageous downbeat, metal and melody fuse, reminding crowds that survival is the rawest form of showtime. Even when disaster stays away, time eventually gnaws at cartilage and vertebrae. Glenn Campbell felt it each night of his 2011 farewell tour. Arthritis in both knees screamed so loudly that rehearsals required ice baths and stoic grins. A double knee replacement offered one last shot at finishing the road. Surgeons swapped bone for titanium, and Campbell hit the highway with stitches under his jeans and early Alzheimer's clouding lyrics. Fans watched a legend race his own memory in arena spotlights, each chorus a small victory over biology. Porter Wagner loved rhinestone suits but relied on spinal surgeons to keep wearing them. A ruptured disc in 2006 left him barely able to stand. Doctors fused vertebrae, and the tall, thin man in black sparkle lined up pain injections like tour dates. The operation let him stay vertical through his 80s, proving that sometimes the flashiest accessory is an unseen metal rod. Charlie Pride quietly booked a hip replacement in the mid-90s, determined to banish chronic limp before it told tabloids he was aging. After months with a cane, he re-emerged, sliding across stages with rejuvenated swagger, voice still silk but now anchored by cobalt chromium. These elective repairs rarely dominate headlines, yet they compress decades of performance into added seasons. They are maintenance logs on human instruments, upgrades you feel in tempo rather than see in selfies. In Nashville, some set lists are stitched together as carefully as incision closures. The audience senses it when the two-step returns to a veteran's stride, or when a guitarist who once grimaced through solos suddenly spins across the stage. Prosthetic joints don't just restore motion, they rewrite choreography, letting legends hit final notes with a flourish instead of a wince. And every extra show feeds families, crews, and the myth of an art form where age polishes rather than tarnishes. Steel knees, fused spines, ceramic hips, country's secret rhythm section. In honky-tonks from Tulsa to Tallahassee, the loudest applause often greets the quietest medical miracle. A voice's anatomy first, art second, and surgery can tilt that balance forever. George Jones learned this after a 1999 SUV crash shattered his ribs and throat. Emergency surgeons repaired the windpipe, but scar tissue lowered his register into darker timber. Fans called it weathered wisdom. Jones simply called it lucky to still sing at all. Bill Anderson's signature hush nearly vanished in 2018 when a stubborn polyp threatened to silence Whisperin' Bill. A micro-laser excision saved the chords, yet the operation thinned their edges. His whisper became softer still, almost a secret shared on late-night radio, proving sometimes preservation means embracing change. Mel Tillis spent years teasing crowds with a stutter that disappeared the moment melody arrived. Throat procedures in the 70s cleared chronic inflammation but spared that endearing speech pattern. Surgeons removed danger while leaving charm, precision worthy of platinum certifications. Minnie Pearl battled facial cancer in the early 90s. Reconstructive work altered her smile, but the price tag of laughter never rose. Pearl returned with the trademark hat, a bigger wink, and jokes sharpened by mortality. Each of these operations proves a simple equation: change the instrument, and you change the song. That evolution can alienate purists or attract new ears. But in country's storytelling tradition, authenticity isn't the sound you start with. It's the honesty you carry after life rearranges your acoustics. Studio engineers adapt right alongside the artists, tweaking microphone placement, softening mid-range frequencies, and lowering keys a half step to cushion fresh limitations. Producers become part-time therapists, reminding fragile egos that texture equals truth. And fans, whether they realize it or not, lean in closer because imperfection invites intimacy. When Jones dragged syllables like gravel across pavement, listeners felt the weight of every highway spent chasing neon. When Anderson's near-breathless phrasing floated through speakers, it sounded like a confidant leaning over a late-night diner booth. Surgical scars turned into acoustic seasoning, proof that resilience can flavor fame. In country, survival is the ultimate remix. Truly. Country music prides itself on truth, but the whole truth is rarely melodic. The songs that taught us how to love, fight, and forgive were often born while somebody's chest lay open or while anesthesia blurred the border between pulse and silence. We dance at weddings to Ring of Fire, oblivious that its creator could barely breathe when he recorded the final take. We toast heartbreak to He Stopped Loving Her Today, unaware that George Jones's reconstructed throat was still stiff from surgery, each note a gamble against scar tissue. We scream choruses in dim sports bars, never guessing how many titanium screws helped those legends lift a guitar strap. If rock celebrates rebellion and pop flaunts polish, country venerates resilience. That resilience is measurable in X-ray films as much as in platinum plaques. It's the shadow of a grafted lung on Merle Haggard's scans, the curve of a prosthetic joint under Charlie Pride's pressed slacks, the hidden seam behind Dolly Parton's smile. These alterations are not footnotes. They're plot twists that change keys, tempos, even business strategies. When Kenny Rogers faced the mirror and saw unfamiliar eyes staring back, he pivoted towards storytelling ballads that fit the new gentleness of his gaze. When Tanya Tucker's scorched vocal cords could no longer chase the upper register, she leaned into smoky mid-range bravado and scored a Grammy decades after her chart debut. Medical charts shaped Billboard charts, and nobody dropped the needle to notice. Surgeries also redefined images. Hank Williams Jr.'s patched-together face spawned a mountain man silhouette that sold millions in merchandise. Minnie Pearl's altered grin made every punchline braver, as if the joke itself had survived the scalpel. Barbara Mandrell's orthopedic hardware pushed her from relentless touring into televised hosting, where she influenced a broader audience than a bus route ever could. Each procedure rippled like feedback through the industry, creating spaces for new artists while immortalizing veteran grit. Yet the most profound change may be ours, the listeners. We cling to authenticity, but authenticity isn't a lack of alteration. It's honesty about the alterations that happen anyway. Bodies break, voices fade, and faces shift with or without cosmetic help. What matters is the confession wrapped inside the melody. Cash knew that when he bared a fractured growl on American 4. Jones embraced it when he dragged timing just behind the beat, letting breath catch up. These choices invite us to face our own repairs, knee replacements, heart stents, emotional sutures, without shame. So next time you cue up a classic, listen for the operating room echo. Hear the ventilator hush under June Carter Cash's final background harmony. Detect the titanium hip clicking faintly as Charlie Pride steps into pocket. Feel the polymer lining in Randy Travis's brain churning zeros and ones so his story can sing again. Every artifact is there, ghosted behind the fiddle and steel guitar. Country's greatest secret isn't pain, it's alchemy. It turns trauma into timber, sutures into style, illness into innovation. The genre asks one question over and over: what will you do with the break that nearly wrecks you? The legends we explored chose to pick the break like a guitar string, letting it vibrate truth across the world. If this journey through scalpels and spotlights moved you, don't just hit like and wander off. Drop a comment telling us which surgical saga surprised you, which altered voice you cherish, or whose hidden battle deserves a deeper dive. And if you know someone fighting their own medical mountain, share this story. Let them hear how Cash found courage, how Klein limped back into the Opry, how Campbell outran dementia for one last encore. Music heals, but so do the stories behind the music. Stick around because the next reveal could be hiding in plain sight on an album cover you already own, waiting for its real story to be told. So keep listening, keep asking, keep honoring the repairs. Because the next timeless chorus might already be echoing through an ICU hallway, waiting for its singer to wake up and breathe it into history.